So now we have to discuss about devices in Azure. So can someone let me know, or anyone having any idea what is meant by devices in Azure? Okay. Mm, okay. So we have read about adding adding an user, adding an group. Okay, adding. Okay, I haven't shared my screen. Sorry. Okay. So we have discussed about adding an user, adding a group, okay, into Azure AD. So what are these users? What are these groups? Users and groups are basically identities. Okay, these are identities in Azure. Identities, or you can say object, both are same. Okay, so what do we mean by identities? Identities or objects in Azure. So what do we mean by identities or as objects in Azure? We are adding users, we are adding groups in order to provide them the access, okay, of the Azure environment. Okay, so this user, or you can say groups, add as an identity to access the Azure account. Okay, so we are creating any user account or group account to give them the access, okay, for for the Azure account. So these acts as an user, or groups acts as an identity or objects to access Azure account. Okay, so we have another identity. Okay, these two are not the only identities that we have in Azure. We have one more identities, and that is called devices. Devices are another identity along with users and groups in Azure AD, whatever you say. Okay, so this devices, like we are adding users, like we are adding groups, similarly we can add devices to Azure AD. Okay, like for users and groups, what we are doing, can someone just let me know what we are doing for users and group? We are adding a user. Okay, so we are doing like conditional, we are setting some conditional access policy, like for to avoid some risky sign-ins. Okay, we are creating mm, we are giving some license access, we are giving some application access to the user. Similarly we are doing the same thing for groups. Okay, so here what we are doing for the devices is the same. Okay, we are adding the devices into Azure AD. Okay, when I say devices, means your, okay, we'll discuss. We are adding devices into Azure AD. Okay, and then what we are doing, once the devices are added, we are controlling the devices through Azure AD. Okay, so first thing is like why we are adding a device. First question is this only. Okay, so basically we are adding a device to Azure AD in order to monitor that device. Okay, suppose if you are given a laptop and if you are using your personal laptop to access your organization's data or organization's email, Teams, Outlook, or anything, so what will happen? Okay, we are like some good people, so we won't be doing anything incorrect. Okay, but there may be some people who may compromise organization's data. Okay, so in order to protect the organization's data or any information, so what organizations will be doing is they will be adding your devices to their Azure Active Directory. And once the devices are added into the Azure Active Directory, they can control, okay, what you can do in that device. Okay, like we can control removable disks, we won't allow. Okay, we won't allow file sharing. We won't allow employees to access YouTube in our organization's laptop. Okay, so basically we can create policies for the devices, and we can once the devices are added into our Azure AD, we can control each and everything of that device. Okay, is it clear till here? Okay, so we can add the devices in Azure AD through three ways. Okay, there are three ways to add your device or organization's device into Azure AD. So what is the first way? First way is Azure AD registration. Second is Azure AD join. Okay, and third is Azure hybrid Azure AD join. Okay, so we'll have to discuss three of them. Okay, so first step is always if you want to control the office laptop or your personal laptop through Azure AD, you need to firstly join that device into Azure AD. Once that device is joined, then only we can control that device. Okay, so how do we join the devices into Azure AD? We have three ways. Okay, first is we can do Azure AD registration of that device. Okay, and second thing is what we can do Azure AD join, and third is like we can do as hybrid Azure AD join. Okay, so let's come to the first type. So in first type, what happens is, okay, suppose uh, in first one, what happens? Suppose this is my Azure AD. Okay, this is my Azure AD. Okay, and what we want to do? We want to join our device. Okay, this is our device. Okay, this is our Windows 10 laptop. Okay, and we want to join this device to our Azure AD. Okay, this is our Windows 10 laptop or Windows 11 laptop, whatever it is. We can join Windows 10, Windows. This is not join actually. This is register. We are registering our device. This is Windows 10. We can register Windows 11 also. We can register Mac OS also, or we can register our phone also. Okay. So in Azure AD registration, what basically is happening? You have to bring your own device. Okay, so Azure AD registration works on the principle of bring your own device. So this is for personal device. Okay, Azure AD, yeah, just remember this term. Azure AD registration is for personal device. Okay, so you must have heard that some organizations, they are not providing you the office laptop. Okay, they are not providing you the office laptop. So what they will ask you is to bring your own device. Okay, and that device only Azure will, or your organization will register. Okay, to the credentials of the organizations. Okay, and once your personal laptop is registered through Azure AD, okay, what will happen? Although that is your device, but each and everything of that device will be controlled from Azure AD. Okay, so what will happen? Azure AD registration is for personal device. Okay, so what happens basically is, once you brought your personal device, okay, so first thing is, mm, there will be a there will be a certificate. Okay, there will be a certificate. Okay, when you configure this Azure AD registration na, there will be one certificate that will be pushed to your device. Okay, from Azure AD. Okay, certificate will be pushed. Okay, and then what will happen? You can do everything, like if SSO is configured or anything as such, you will be able to use your personal device as your office laptop only. Okay, so we'll see how to do this. Okay, so where we can find this option, we'll go to Microsoft Entra ID. Okay, we'll go to Microsoft Entra ID first, and we'll go to which option? We will have to go to devices option. Okay, so if we will register any device, so from where we'll get the information of the registered device? We'll have to go for all devices options. So if we will register any device, that device name and all the details will be shown over here. Okay, yeah, device setting, BitLocker key, so everything you can manage from this portal. Okay, and if you have suppose Intune configured, so you can manage the mobile device management policy, access management policy, each and everything you can manage from one portal only. Okay, so first option what I told you is Azure AD registration. Okay, so in Azure AD registration, what it is happening, we are bringing our own personal device, and that device we are registering to Azure AD. And once the personal device is registered to this Azure AD, a certificate will be pushed from Azure AD to this device. Okay, and once this certificate is pushed to our device, and once this device is registered, we will be able to access that device as our organization's laptop only. Okay, you won't be able to use removable disk or whatever your company or organization has created, the policy which they have configured. You will have to imply those policy in your personal device also. Okay, so first option is Azure AD registration. And what is the second option? Second option is Azure AD join. Okay, so in Azure AD join, what it is happening? In second option, you don't have to bring your own device. A device will be given to you by your own organization. Okay, organizations. Okay, in second option, what it is happening? Suppose you want to join your device to Azure AD. So over here, what will be happening? Here you will have to, your organizations will be providing you a laptop. Okay, when we are configuring this device addition through Azure AD Join, okay, our organizations will provide us the laptop, will provide laptop or device, whatever you can say. Okay, organizations will provide you laptop. Okay, and then what you need to do? You just need to join your device to Azure AD. And which credentials you will be using to join your device to Azure AD? You will have to use user credentials of the Azure account. Okay, we will have some user accounts created into our Azure account now. So those credentials, username and password details, we will have to enter while adding our devices. Okay, so just remember both are different. Okay, in interviews they might ask you what is how many ways do we have to add a device into Azure AD. So you need to mention each and every point. First way is Azure AD registration, in which we are bringing our own device. Okay, and this whole thing you need to mention. We need to firstly, once you start the registration of this device, there will be a authentication request created. Okay, so okay, there will be one authentication request created. Authentication request created. Okay, and then what you will have to do once this authentication request is created, you will have to enter your credentials, Azure AD credentials, user credentials. Okay, it will ask. Once you enter your user credentials, then what will happen? This device will be registered to your Azure AD, and once this device is registered, a certificate, okay, a certificate will be pushed from the Azure AD to your personal device. Okay, a certificate will be pushed, and once this certificate is pushed and installed on your local device, this local device will act as your office device only. Okay, so you can access all the SSO features and everything from this local device also. Okay, so this is the first way. Second way is what we if your organization is providing you the laptop, we won't be going for the registration option. We will be going for this join option. We will simply join this device to Azure AD. Okay, and once this device is joined to this Azure AD, we will be able to access all the SSO features and whatever we are doing, so we'll be able to do them. Okay, so we have discussed two for now. So tomorrow we'll see this hybrid Azure design, and we'll see how to do this AD registration, okay, and AD design both. And this third one also we'll see how much we'll be able to do. Okay, so there are so many steps involved in joining a device to a Azure AD. Okay, so I just give you a brief overview. So tomorrow we'll see what are the steps we need to do if we have to add any device to the Azure AD. Okay, so tomorrow we'll create a Windows VM, Windows 10 VM, and we will try to join that Windows VM to this Microsoft Entra ID. Okay, and then that device will be coming over here. Okay, so we'll see that tomorrow.